The first scream didn't come from fear. It came from belief. Not desperate. Just a small voice that knew someone would answer. Daddy, help her. And in that second, everything fractured. A diner full of noise froze like a paused movie frame. Forks hovered in the air. Coffee stopped mid for conversations. Because everyone felt the kind of moment you don't witness often. But when you do, it rewires something inside you. The man in the corner booth didn't look like a hero. In fact, he looked like the opposite. His jacket was worn thin at the elbows. His hands were rough, scarred from years of work no one ever applauded. And shoulders sagged not from age, but from life. The kind of life that takes more than it gives back. He was a single dad, and tonight was supposed to be simple. Just burgers, fries, a shared milkshake, one quiet hour where the world couldn't reach them. His daughter sat across from him, feet swinging, humming softly to herself. For a moment, he let himself pretend things were normal. But then the booth behind them erupted. A chair scraped back too hard. A man laughed, but there was no humor in it. Another voice followed. Lower, sharper, dangerous. A young woman stood near the counter, clutching her bag, eyes darting. Two men blocked her path. Not touching her. Not yet. But close enough that everyone understood what was coming next. People noticed, and people looked away. That's how it usually happens in moments of humanity, or moments without it. The father noticed too. He felt that familiar war begin inside him. The voice of survival whispered first. You're tired. You're not built for this. You have a daughter to protect. He kept his eyes on the table. On the ketchup smear he meant to wipe. On the crack in the vinyl seat, anything but the situation. Behind him, then his daughter stood up. Her chair scraped the floor lute in the silence. She wasn't scared. She wasn't shaking. She simply looked at him the way children look at parents when they believe the world is still good. Daddy, she said again, softer this time. Please help her. The words hit harder than any punch ever could. 'Cause years ago, on a night just like this, he had made a promise. Not with fancy words, not out loud, but in his heart, that no matter how broken he felt, no matter how small he seemed, his daughter would never grow up watching him stay silent in the face of wrong. His hands curled into fists under the table. His pulse thudded in his ears. Across the room, one of the men stepped closer to the woman. Too close. His smile vanished. His tone changed. The kind of shift that makes your skin crawl even if you don't know why. The father stood up slowly, deliberately, not to fight. Not to be brave, but because in that moment, doing nothing felt more dangerous than doing something. He took one step toward them. And that's when everything spiraled out of control. He didn't raise his voice. That was the unsettling part. The father stopped a few feet away from the men, hands open, palms visible, a universal signal. I'm not here to fight. But his eyes, those, told a different story. Calm, focused, unmovable. Hey, he said, steady as stone. She said she wants to leave. One of the men laughed, too loud, too fake, the kind of laugh meant to reclaim control when it's already slipping away. We're just talking, the man sneered. Mind your own business. Around them, the diner remained frozen. Everyone was watching now, but no one moved. No one backed him up. Moments of humanity are often lonely like that. The woman's hands trembled around her bag strap. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. The second man stepped forward. He was bigger, wider, the kind who uses his size like a weapon. He leaned in close to the father's face, breath heavy with alcohol. You got a problem? He growled. The father felt fear then. Real fear. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. His mind screamed images of his daughter alone. Of hospital rooms. Of regret. But fear wasn't new to him. He'd been living with it for years. Fear of bills he couldn't pay. Fear of nights when his daughter was sick and he had no one to call. Fear of failing, the only person who mattered. This fear. It didn't own him. No, the father said quietly. I've got a responsibility. That word's responsibility hung in the air like a challenge. The big man scoffed and shoved him. Not hard, just enough to test him. To see if he'd fold, the father stumbled back a step, then planted his feet. Behind him, his daughter watched. Wide-eyed, silent, trusting. That was the moment everything changed. The father moved not with rage, but with purpose. When the man reached out again, the father caught his wrist. Fast. Shockingly. Fast. Shockingly fast. Years of working with his hands had taught him leverage, not strength. A twist. A sharp cry of pain. The second man lunged, but the father ducked, pushing the first man into him. Bodies collided. A table overturned. Glass shattered. The diner erupted. Chairs scraped back. Someone yelled, Someone else shouted for the police, but it was over almost as fast as it began. The father didn't keep swinging. He didn't chase him. He simply stood between the woman and the men, breathing hard, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "Leave," he said, louder this time. The men hesitated. Pride battled reality. Then reality won. They cursed, shoved past onlookers, then stormed out into the night. Silence returned, but it felt different now. The woman collapsed into a chair, sobbing. A waitress rushed to her side. Someone finally called 911. The father turned around. His daughter was crying, too, but not from fear. She ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "You did it, Daddy," she whispered. "I knew you would." Those words broke him. He knelt down, holding her tight, blinking back tears he didn't want anyone to see. Round them, people stared, some with admiration, some with guilt, but the father didn't feel like a hero. He felt exposed, because now came the part no one thinks about: the consequences. Minutes later, red and blue lights washed over the diner windows. Officers stepped inside. Statements were taken. Names written down. The father answered every question honestly. He expected handcuffs, charges, trouble he couldn't afford. Instead, one officer looked at him for a long moment and said quietly, "You did the right thing." Still, that didn't stop the worry, gnawing at his chest as he walked home that night. His daughter asleep in his arms. He had no idea that someone else had been watching too. Someone who wouldn't forget his face, and someone who would come looking for him. The very next day, the knock came at 7:12 a.m. Not loud, not aggressive, but deliberate. The father froze mid-step, coffee mug halfway to his lips. His daughter was still asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket too small for her growing legs. For one fragile second, he considered pretending no one was home. Too early? Too soon. His mind raced through worst-case scenarios. Maybe one of the men had pressed charges. Maybe the police had changed their minds. Maybe doing the right thing had finally caught up with him. He set the mug down and opened the door. A black sedan sat at the curb, polished, expensive, out of place on a street where paint peeled and lawns went uncut. A man in a tailored suit stood on the step, posture perfect, eyes scanning everything. "Mr. Harris?" he asked. The father nodded slowly. "My employer would like a word with you." No explanation? No badge? Just that. The father glanced back at his daughter, then stepped outside, closing the door behind him. The man gestured to the car. Inside smelled like leather and money, the kind of space the father had never belonged to. They drove in silence. Through parts of the city he only passed on buses, glass buildings, clean sidewalks, people who walked like the world expected good things from them. Finally, the car stopped in front of a tower that scraped the sky. Inside, elevators whispered upward. Floors ticked past, numbers he didn't recognize. When the doors opened, the view stole his breath. The entire city stretched beneath them. A woman stood by the window. She turned slowly. Not young, not old, powerful in a way that didn't need to announce itself. "I saw you last night," she said. The father stiffened. His stomach dropped. "I was in the diner, sitting near the back." He searched her face, confused. "My name is Eleanor Grant," she continued. "I'm the CEO of Grant Systems." The name landed heavy. He knew it. Everyone did. A billion-dollar company. Philanthropy awards. Magazine covers. "I watched an entire room look away," she said calmly, "and I watched one man stand up." The father swallowed. "I didn't do anything special," he said. You risked everything," she cut in gently, "with no guarantee of reward, no audience. Just your daughter, watching." She stepped closer. "I want to understand why." The father hesitated. No one had ever asked him that before. "Because she was scared," he finally said. "And because my daughter was watching who I'd choose to be." Silence filled the room again. Eleanor nodded slowly, as if confirming something she already knew. "I've spent my life surrounded by people who talk about values," she said. "Integrity, courage, humanity." Her eyes hardened. Very few actually live them when it costs something. She reached into her bag and placed a folder on the table. Inside were photos. The diner, the confrontation, his daughter hugging him. "I had my team find you," she said. "Not to reward you." The father looked up sharply. "Then why am I here?" She met his gaze. "Became moments of humanity shouldn't disappear into the night. And because I believe one moment can change more than one life." She slid the folder toward him. Inside was an offer. A job, a salary that made his chest tighten, Benes's stability, a future he'd stopped imagining. His hands shook. "This has to be a mistake," he whispered. Eleanor smiled soft but unwavering. "Nah," she said. "It's a choice." And just as hope began to bloom, she added one final sentence that changed everything. There's only one condition. The word condition echoed louder than the offer itself. The father stared at the folder again, as if the numbers might rearrange themselves into something more believable. His chest felt tight. This kind of opportunity didn't happen to men like him, not without a catch. What kind of condition? He asked carefully. Eleanor didn't answer right away. She walked back to the window, looking down at the city like it was a chessboard she'd mastered long ago. I don't want you to work for me because you stopped two men in a diner, she said. Violence justified or not isn't point. She turned back to him. I want you because of what you didn't do. The father frowned. You didn't escalate. You didn't seek praise. You didn't even stay to explain yourself. You protected someone and went home. She paused. And then you woke up this morning expecting punishment, not reward. That hit uncomfortably close to the truth. My condition is simple, Eleanor continued. You take this job, but you don't become a symbol. No interviews, no viral stories, no turning your daughter into a headline. Relief washed over him quickly, followed by confusion. Then why offer it at all? Because I'm building something, she said. A division focused on ethics, community response, real human judgment. I need people who act before they calculate. She slid another document forward. You'd start by training executives, teaching them what responsibility actually looks like. The father almost laughed. I didn't even finish college. Eleanor's voice sharpened just enough to cut. Neither did courage, or empathy, or instinct. Silence settled again. Images flooded his mind. His daughter's school, her future, doctor visits he wouldn't have to fear, nights without counting coins. Then doubt crept in. What if I fail? He asked quietly. Eleanor smiled, not unkindly. Then you'll do what you did last night. You'll stand up anyway. He signed. The pen felt heavy. Permanent by noon. His life had shifted direction. That evening, he picked his daughter up from school early. Ice cream for dinner. Extra laughs. He didn't tell her everything, just that Daddy got a new job. She studied him, eyes sharp in that way children have. Is it because you helped that lady? She asked. He paused. Maybe, he said, but mostly because you reminded me who I'm supposed to be. She smiled, satisfied. But the world hadn't finished with his moment of humanity. Yet 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address, no stamp he recognized. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You embarrassed us? His blood ran cold. You think one good act makes you untouchable? At the bottom, a tiny place. In one final line that made his hand shake. Bring your daughter if you're brave. The praise. None of it mattered now, because the past had come back looking for payment. He didn't sleep that night. The letter lay on the kitchen table like a loaded weapon. He read it again and again, each time hoping the words would soften. They didn't. By morning, he'd made his decision. He showed the letter to Eleanor. Reaction was immediate. Calm but dangerous. This isn't your burden, she said. I can make this disappear. He shook his head. That's what they expect, he replied. That I'll hide or hand it off. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Then you won't go alone. The meeting place was an abandoned parking structure on the edge of the city. Concrete pillars, broken lights, the kind of place where echoes feel like witnesses. He arrived early. His daughter was safe far from there despite the threat. That line in the letter was meant to control him. He knew that now. Footsteps approached. 2 men emerged from the shadows. Not the same ones from the diner. Better dressed, colder, smarter. You cost us money, one said flatly, and respect. The father felt fear claw up his spine, but he didn't step back. I stopped something that shouldn't have happened, he said. The second man smiled thinly. That's the problem. You made it public. Before the tension could snap, headlights flared. Cars surrounded the structure. Doors opened. Voices echoed. Eleanor stepped forward, calm as ever. These men are under investigation, she said. Harassment, coercion, organized intimidation. Police moved in. The men froze. In that moment, the father understood something profound. This wasn't about strength, or money, or power. It was about who stands up and who doesn't. As the men were taken away, Eleanor turned to him. This, she said quietly, is why moments of humanity matter. They expose things people work very hard to hide. Weeks later, life settled into something new. Not easy, but solid. The father taught workshops, quiet rooms, powerful people listening, really listening for the first time. He never told the full diner story. He didn't need to. At home, his daughter thrived, laughed louder, dreamed bigger. One night, as he tucked her in, she asked, Daddy, are you brave? He smiled. No, he said softly. I'm just someone who chose not to look away. She yawned. Thought for a second. I want to be like that, she said. That was the real reward, not the job, not the salary, not the recognition, but knowing that one small voice, one quiet decision, had changed the direction of more than one life. And somewhere out there, another person would face a choice: look away or stand up. But stories like this don't end when the danger fades. They echo. Months passed. The diner incident never went viral. No headlines, no applause, just quiet ripples spreading outward in ways no one could measure. Until one afternoon, everything shifted again. The father was standing in a conference room, mid-sentence, explaining accountability to a room full of executors, when his phone buzzed. Once, then again. Unknown number? He ignored it. Then a message appeared. You don't know me, but I was there that night. His breath caught. I was the waitress. He excused himself, stepping into the hallway. His hands felt heavy as he typed back. Are you okay? The reply came instantly. Because of you? Yes, she explained how that night had haunted her, how she'd replayed the moment, again and again, the room full of adults, frozen, and one tired man who stood up anyway. I quit that job. The message read, I started training for social work. I didn't want to be someone who just watches anymore. The father leaned against the wall, eyes burning. Then another message came in. Different number, same theme. A customer, a passer, someone who'd only heard the story secondhand. Each message carried the same truth. That moment changed something in me. He finally understood what Eleanor meant. Moments of humanity don't end. They multiply. That night, he told his daughter, a simplified version, not about threats, not about fear, just about impact. Sometimes, he said, you help one person, and it helps people you'll never meet. She thought about that. So it's like a chain? She asked. He smiled. Exactly. Like a chain? She nodded. Serious. Then we should always be the first link. The words stopped in cold. Because that's how the world actually changes. Not through power, not through fame, but through ordinary people choosing to be the first link when it costs them something, somewhere. Another diner buzzed with noise. Another woman stood uncomfortable. Another room full of people weighed the risk of getting involved. And somewhere, a child was watching, learning what courage really looks like. Years later, the father would barely recognize his old life. Not because he became rich, not because he became famous, but because he became present. The final evaluation room was quiet. 20 new leaders sat in a circle, no tables, no barriers. This was always how he ended the program. He asked one question. When the moment comes, who will you be? No slides, no notes, just silence. Then he told them the only story he ever shared in full. Not about the fight, not about the threats, but about a little girl who believed so deeply in her father that she expected him to stand up. Courage, he said, is contagious, but so is silence. The room changed. Later that evening, he walked home hand in hand with his daughter, older, now taller, but with the same steady eyes. They passed a small diner. Different place. Same glow, inside. Laughter. Clinking dishes. Life happening. A woman near the door looked uncomfortable. Two men stood too close. The tension was familiar. Before he could move, someone else did. A young man stood up. Calm. Hands open. Hey, he said. She said she wants to leave. The father felt his chest tighten not with fear, but with something better. Hoped that his daughter squeezed his hand. See, she whispered. To chain. He smiled, eyes shining. Because the greatest moments of humanity don't announce themselves. They don't ask permission. They don't wait for perfect people. They begin with belief. They survive on action. And they end with someone else standing up. Next time. If this story moved you even a little, remember this? The world doesn't need more heroes. It needs more people who don't look away.